Hey guys, April is second chance month. April is second chance month, a time when we recognize the importance of giving people who've been impacted by the justice system a shot at redemption. Right? It's a celebration of fresh starts. It's a celebration of renewed purpose and the power of possibility after incarceration. But today, we're flipping the narrative. This episode isn't about getting a second chance, it's about giving one. We've basically changed the narrative, and we're going to talk about the kind of second chances that require real courage. Forgiving someone who hurt you, disappointed you, maybe even traumatized you. I mean, that's where the real courage comes from. Whether it was a parent who wasn't there, a friend who turned their back on you, or someone who left scars deeper than words. This is about the strength it takes to let go, to release, and to move forward by offering grace. Let's get into it. All right, welcome to the Conviction Fiction. I am your host, Antoine Rivers. Very eventful weekend this past weekend, man. Had a lot of fun. Um, had a lot of purpose-driven activities out there. But now we're back. We're back online to get into the serious topics of how to change the narrative and change the stigma surrounding being incarcerated. You guys can see I got a new little background and everything. We leveling up over here. We leveling up, and just want to appreciate all the support and the love that I received over this past weekend, especially with the book sales, man. That was pretty dope. Without even trying, people kind of knew who I was, what I was about. So it was definitely a great experience. But today we're going to talk about second chances, and for for me, I just want to say that second chances are pretty much, one of those deals where I take it personal. I take it personal when it comes to second chances. And I'm not talking about the second chances that come with being um, let go from prison, right? All of us want that second chance, but this episode isn't about getting a second chance. It's about giving a second chance. And um, it hits close to home for me because giving someone a second chance isn't just an idea I talk about. It's something I've lived. And I'll be real with you. It wasn't easy. There was a point in my life where I carried a lot of anger, a lot of pain towards someone who I felt should have protected me, showed up for me, or simply done right by me. But instead, they left wounds I didn't even know I was still carrying. So today I want to share a piece of my journey, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Because maybe, just maybe, someone listening right now is going through something similar. But got a special guest on for you today, guys. I know you haven't seen this guy in a while, but he's here with us today. Everybody, especially those ones in the back, Give it up for my guy, Eric McDaniel. What's up, Eric?
Hey, glad to be here, bro.
Good
Glad
to
to
be
be here.
here. Yeah, Eric. Everybody knows Eric. Eric is our resident. I don't think I'm trying to get him to be a co-host, but Eric he has stuff going on. Sometimes he can't he can't work. And it's all about being consistent when it comes to this type of deal, because But I understand he's swore that he's gonna do better. Moving forward, right? But let's talk about second chances. Tell me about second chances, Eric. Especially coming from the slant we're going from today.
Second chances, it's not always about others. Sometimes it's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger, bitterness, disappointment. For those of us who have brought harm or disappointment to others, I feel like this, you can't ask for something that you're not willing to be able to give, and you can't heal unless you learn to forgive. Instead of toting the bitterness, some of the anger, the resentment, some of the harm that you feel others have done to you, it creates a path for you to be able to display that same forgiveness to others for being able to hurt you. Um, I've had some disappointing times. When I was going through therapy, one of the hardest things to get over was my stepfather, and that was a situation where I grew up really thinking this guy was my father until I was about 13. Um, but man, I done had guns put to my head, triggers pulled, a lot of things at an early age, like 7 or 8. And as I grew older, I compartmentalized it. I was totally enraged and didn't even know it. About maybe 31, 32, when I started going to therapy, I had to really deal with that, and that was one of the hardest things to do. But I learned to forgive, and that forgiving was really freeing for me. Then as I began to grow older in life and some of my experiences that I looked at how I may have brought harm or disappointment to others, it really allowed me to be able to forgive them. So giving others second chances, and it's a blessing because within like maybe a couple years of forgiving, he wound up passing. And I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to give that second chance to me, and not only for me, but also for him.
Yeah. Over time, when it came to holding on to that pain, it was only holding me back. So I kind of relate to what you were saying, especially with your stepfather. So today, I'm going to share a piece of my journey, not because it's perfect, like I said, but it's definitely real. Um, for me, being able to come up around my stepdad, I called him my dad. I don't know how that really works for most people out there, but he took me on when I was maybe, I don't know, 2, 1 or 2 years old. I didn't, he was the only guy I knew, right? He was the only guy I knew for a long time. And so when we talk about second chances, especially the kind that involve deep emotional pain, it's not just theory for me. It's not just a theory. It's definitely personal. I wrote about this moment in my book, actually. But I want to share it here with you today, raw and direct, because I think it's only fair. Because I remember like it was yesterday. I had gotten in trouble for something. It was something minor, but it was enough to bring on that wave of fear any kid or any child would feel when they know punishment is coming. When you about to get toe
Right.
up. Something about to happen. So I braced myself for this whipping, bro. But what came next hurt far worse than anything physical. Um, so my dad, or the man that I thought was my dad, he looked at me with not necessarily tears in his eyes, but it was definitely a deep conviction. He looked at me and he said, "You wouldn't do this if you knew who your dad really was." And at first
Wow.
I thought maybe he was drunk or just saying something to make me feel bad. But then I remember he had just gotten out of work. He didn't drink on the job. So this was real. And it broke something in me. It really did break something in me. I couldn't be no more than like maybe 8 or 9, years old. Now, remember, I said he had been around me since I was 2. He was the only dude I knew. Him and my mom married, doing that thing. I had brothers and sisters by now. And he told me at like 8 or 9 years old that he wasn't my dad. At that moment, it totally shattered my world. It was like learning gravity didn't even exist anymore. Because for as long as I can remember, he was my father. That was my foundation. But in an instant, just like that, it was gone. And the pain of not just the revelation, but the way it was delivered, it left a scar with me. And I can remember thinking, how could someone who has raised me, who stood in as my protector, um, how could he drop that kind of truth on me like it was a weapon? Like, I mean, because it worked. He did weaponize it because it hurt me. And for a long time, I carried that. The confusion, the resentment. I wanted to ask my mom, what the hell is he talking about? Who is my dad? Like, he's not it. So that grief
Mhm.
I had, it was over something I didn't even understand. I was like a youngster. But over the years,
Right.
I had to wrestle with something deeper. I was like, do I let this wound define me, or do I find a way to heal? Right. It wasn't until after prison, like, because this forgiveness didn't come easy. It didn't come at all at once. It came in layers. I had first processed the betrayal, because to me, he betrayed me. He had put on this whole thing like he was my daddy, but he wasn't. So it was like an identity crisis. Like, who am I? Who is you? And the years of silence about something so critical, as to who I was. But I also had to recognize that hurt people do hurt people. I know you probably heard that before. Hurt people
Most
hurt
definitely.
people. And that maybe, just maybe, the man who raised me was carrying pain of his own, pain he didn't even know how to express. So choosing forgiveness was pretty hard.
I We had similar situations. I grew up thinking this guy was my father. And matter of fact, his name is Eric Morris, and that was my name. How my parents did that, I do not know. But he was Eric Morris, and I was Eric Morris. So I understand that whole trying to understand as a young kid, and rationale with it, and uh, that was a pretty hard thing because I was raised in his family. I was raised as their grandkid, uh, and then after they got a divorce, things kind of just really went sour. He stopped coming around. I got two younger brothers my mother had. It was by him, and it was just like when he was gone, he was gone. And so I went through that phase of who is my father. But at that point, really, was kind of timid in knowing who he was, 'cause, you know. And so it wasn't until 17, I was 17 years old, my mother introduced me to my biological father, which is a whole nother thing because our relationship, the first thing he said to me was, I heard about him putting them guns to your head and stuff. And I'm thinking, and you didn't come try to help? I was cooking hell over there. And so that built up resentment because this guy was maybe 2, 3 blocks away from me. And so our relationship never, blossomed into anything. And I learned a valuable lesson. Maybe I would say maybe 2011, 2002. While I'm in prison, this guy don't send me one dime, no letter. Got a granddaughter out there. And so I saw him and he said, "How you doing, son?" And I had to tell him, "Hey, man, don't call me son. You haven't earned that right." And so I had a janitorial business at the time. And I can remember vividly working that night. He kept coming up in my head and I'm saying, why don't this dude just go on? He should just die or something. And it wasn't but a couple of days later, uh, I got off work and somebody said, "Hey man, your dad died." It's done
Hmm.
too many people know that he was my father. So this was on a Wednesday. And so I wound up going to church that night and I'm praying and in church and it was like Holy Spirit leading me to say, "Who are you to judge?" And so I'm not a real big funeral home or go to a funeral person. But I got up that morning and I wanted to make amends. And I tell everybody, do it while they're living. Because when I
Hmm.
walk in the funeral home, I see this body before me. And I'm trying to make peace and just ask for forgiveness. You know what I mean? For those words. But I'm just talking to, you know, just the body here. And so that helped me to understand the importance of making amends and trying to forgive others. Because everybody has a story. I have a story. I wasn't the most perfect. Far from the perfect parent. Even though, you know, I love my daughter and I raised her at custody, but I wound up going to prison. That was years I wasn't in her life. And I'm pretty sure I had to go to her to ask for forgiveness. And
Right.
so,
Right.
to be able to make amends while they're living, means a lot because the light didn't really come on. Who are you to give it? You got skeletons in your closet.
Hmm.
And
That's
what
true.
I really learned after he passed, he didn't really have a father, and everybody has a story. And we can be so quick to look at a particular situation and make a
Hmm.
judgment, but there's so much that goes into before that situation that we may not know. And so, giving others a second chance, I try to encourage everybody to make amends with your parents and others, whoever you can. But
Yeah.
that was a turning point because if I had had the chance all over again, I probably would have got to know him. I probably would have given him an opportunity to know me. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was a time that I had saw another part of my life that I never opened up the door to try to get to know.
Yeah.
And now that's part of my life.
And that's definitely something worth talking about and digging into, and that's what this show is about today. It's about giving that second chance because what if we were to really be honest with ourselves, a lot of the trauma and a lot of the hurt that we went through that we never healed from, that was probably something that contributed to us ending up being in trouble in the first place. I mean, for me, it was like choosing to forgive wasn't about letting my dad off the hook. It was about setting myself free because even after I got incarcerated, I still thought about these things. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I felt that the guy that I thought had my back really didn't have my back. And it traumatized me. Like I can't trust anyone anymore. Right. So it was all about reclaiming my peace and about being able to love without always looking over my shoulder. And that story, along with so many others about transformation, redemption, and truth, is part of why I wrote the book, The Conviction Fiction. Um, if this episode or any episode resonates with you, I encourage you to pick up the book. It's not a story of incarceration. It's about life after the bars, life after betrayal, life after brokenness, and most of all, it's about what it means to rebuild from the inside out, because that's what it's all about. It's about facing pain, naming it, and deciding it won't control you. Now, I was out there this weekend. Um, we were at the car show. Most times I'm on this show, we're talking about real issues. Like we're talking about PTSD, we're talking about trauma, we're talking about getting a job, even the stigmas of having to face employers that might not really want to hire you. We're talking about the serious things. And I was kind of out there having fun with it this past weekend, but um starting over often starts with one of the hardest things any one of us can do, and that's forgiving someone who we don't necessarily believe they deserve to be forgiven.
Right.
That's a hard thing. So I want you to think about this for a moment. All my listeners, Eric, you're on here. I'm about to hit you with a question. What did that person do that impacted you? What did they do?
That person lied on me and sent me to prison. And that was that was one of the
So
hardest.
was it like neglect, betrayal, uh,
It was betrayal.
abandonment?
No, I wasn't abandonment. It was betrayal. And for me to forgive, I had to really, because it consumed me. It affected my mental health. It affected my health.
Hmm.
Uh, when you lock up, you preoccupied with, I got to do this time, but it was getting
Hmm.
out. And this person even wrote a letter asking for forgiveness.
Hmm.
And so,
Well, let
for
me
me
ask you
to,
this. Was there a specific moment you knew you wanted to forgive? Was there a specific moment? Because we all had the scars, we all had them. But was there a specific moment you knew you wanted to forgive?
yeah, maybe a month after I got home, I saw that it was consuming me.
But it took
It,
years though.
oh yes, definitely. Definitely took years. And it's more than one person I can go through my life, but this particular situation, yes, it really it consumed me. It was matter of fact, it was a part of rage that I was using for motivation, um,
Mhm.
and it was really unhealthy. It was really unhealthy, but I saw what it was doing for me, and with my relationship with Christ, I knew I had to. How could I ask for forgiveness and not be willing to forgive others? And so, that was a big
Mhm.
thing. But it was freeing for me uh, to let the person know, you know what,
Yeah,
I forgive
yeah.
you.
Like for
And so
me, it wasn't like one big emotional breakthrough. It was a series of quiet choices, like little moments where I realized that carrying this hate or dislike for this man was only weighing me down. Um, because he did some great things. He taught me about business. He taught me about working hard. He taught me about how to be a good man to a woman, you know. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my life as a prisoner to the past because he had told me that he wasn't my dad, right? And the way he weaponized it to make it seem is like, okay, um, basically you're bad for no reason, for a reason you don't even know, right? If you knew who your dad was, then you probably wouldn't be as bad as you are or something like that. Um, so um, it gave me peace after I gave him that forgiveness, and I was able to get out. And because I did this while I was, if you on the podcast, you listen or listening to the podcast, and you're incarcerated right now, this is like the real time to find your peace. I know it's a lot of chaotic stuff going on. It's all kinds of crazy. I've been there. I know, and it's only gotten worse. But being able to find your peace in the middle of that chaos, it's going to give you
right,
clarity, right? It gave me space to grow, not because everything got never, not because everything got fixed, but because I chose to stop reliving the pain every day. And here's the thing:
mm-hmm,
giving a second chance doesn't always mean reconciliation. You don't got to like be friends with these people anymore. You don't have to do that. Sometimes it's not about rebuilding the relationship; it's about releasing the hole that the relationship had on you. Because I've
right,
forgiven people that I'll never speak to again. I forgave people that I never speak to again, not because they earned it, because I needed it. I needed to let go because it's like that
right,
anger, like and anger can you can't think clearly when you're upset or angry about something, especially when it's deep rooted. When it comes to like not forgiving someone.
right, right. I think you brought up a great point. Forgiveness doesn't mean trusting someone.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
no,
that
I know, no, because I
it
know
means
someone
that
might be listening right now saying like, I gotta trust them. They don't even deserve forgiveness. You want me to trust them? Nah, that ain't what it means. That ain't what it means. It's like letting them go. Like they are who they are. They did what they did. I'm through with that. I'm done with it. Maybe like even with my dad, I didn't understand. Like he lost his dad when he was like maybe 6 or 7. He didn't even get a chance to know his dad like that. You know what I mean? And here I was 8 or 9, so I'm looking at a man telling me about if I knew who my dad was, who he didn't even really have a dad. Like he was gone. You know what I mean? So trying to understand it, it helped me, especially after I was able to get home. I mean, him talk like we talked extensively, bro. He became my best friend right before he passed. Me and him were like the best of friends, bro. And it kind of it really helped me, especially with the time away, because I'm telling you guys, and I'm kind of zoom in on this one really quick because it's very important while you are there. If you have a spouse or a brother or a husband or a wife or a child or a cousin, while they are incarcerated, do not hesitate. I mean, even if you're listening and you're incarcerated, do not hesitate to use this time to gain some peace, to gain some forgiveness, to give forgiveness, because you're going to get your second chance, right? You'll probably end up getting your second chance. However, being able to give someone else a second chance, because we all always want that second chance for us. but we might not. We might need to give someone else a second chance in order to propel ourselves into a different stratosphere, if that makes sense. And maybe those folks don't deserve that forgiveness. I mean, but it isn't a reward for them. It's a gift for you.
You know, you talk about a particular time with my stepdad. Once I got back out, we began to talk. Um, there was a particular time I saw him start going into pre-dementia. And we're talking about a very intelligent guy. He's very, very intelligent. And to see him go into that state, even though I forgive him, all the bitterness and everything left. Not in a way to celebrate this, but it's like your story pretty much. That was the only dad I knew. That was the one that showed me how to tie a tie, how to have a work ethic. You know, some of the meaningful things that a man will hand down to a young boy. I had an opportunity to have those. Now, it was a lot of drama that came with, but it really hurt my heart to see him go into that dementia state, and all of the hurt, the anger, the resentment. Even though I knew it was gone, it definitely left, and it turned into a real compassion and empathy at that particular time. And so I look back on that, and I want to just encourage everybody: make amends, man. Don't carry unnecessary weight. Um, when you hold on to unforgiveness, it affects your mental health, uh, blood pressure, immune system, heart health, self-esteem, and even cancer. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of those things uh, affect you in a way that really affect your health, not just your mental health, but your body health. And so
Right.
forgiveness is one of the greatest things for me at this particular time, because I had to come home and I had to make amends. I had to ask others for forgiveness. I had to live a life to show that I was worthy of forgiveness. And it's never good to ask for something that you're not willing to give.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we are here today, man. I want to thank you again for joining back with the Conviction Fiction, because your stories are always heartfelt and they can make a difference, like they always do. Um, and like I said, it's one of the hardest things that any one of us can do. It's like forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. Now, we talked about what that person did to impact you. That's one of the questions that you need to ask yourself. What did that person did to impact you? Was it neglect? Was it betrayal? Was it violence? Was it abandonment? Because we all have someone who's left a scar, whether they meant to or not. And then you got to figure out that specific moment when you knew you wanted to forgive. You knew you wanted to. Maybe you couldn't forgive, but you knew you wanted to, right? You need to find that out. For me, like I said, it wasn't like a big thing. It was just a series of quiet choices that I started to make. Um, and once you realize that, you'll see that forgiveness can change your life. Now, for me, it gave me peace. It gave me clarity. Not because everything got fixed, because I chose to stop reliving that pain. Just remember, here it is. I'm up in age now. I ain't gonna get my age out like that online, but like here it is. I'm that old. I'm this old, and I can still remember. Like yesterday, I can remember looking in his eyes and him telling me that he was not my dad. It's like I said, it's not about rebuilding relationship. Fortunately I was able to rebuild mine with him, but sometimes you can't. You may forgive. You need to forgive people that you'll never speak to again, because it's about you. Um, they might not deserve that forgiveness, especially if it's something more traumatizing that you probably don't even want to talk to about online or wherever. But we got to break that cycle. Um, Last week, we on the show we dove into the mental health crisis surrounding solitary confinement. We talked about the psychology, the psychological toll of extreme isolation, and how that kind of punishment can leave lasting scars, especially for people who were already struggling before they ever hit the yard. But what happens after that? What happens when the door opens and you're told you're free, but you're stepping into a world that does not look anything like the one you left? And that's where we picking up today at, guys. I know y'all like, how does that kind of meld into what we're talking about today? Because we're talking about the re-entry journey, what it really looks like to come home after 15, 20, even 30 years behind bars. And then, you know, we're talking about the first 48 hours of how that really would look. Okay. Because it's stepping outside of the gates. And if you have not transformed your mental, if you have not transformed your emotional side, I know it's tough right now, or when you're there. When I was there, it was tough for me to separate my emotional and my spiritual side. It was definitely a difficult thing to do, especially when it came to giving forgiveness. Here I was begging for a second chance. How many times you begged for a second chance, Eric? Did you ever beg or plead with God to give you a second chance while you was locked up?
No doubt. Most definitely.
Every
Yeah,
day, right? Every day.
yeah. After the first day, I'm ready to go. Look, after Kiev, I'm ready to go. Uh,
Right.
Most definitely, and I really get that mental aspect, or even seeing the system for what it was, seeing my actions, uh, seeing how my value system, was what it was, and wanting to come out and expect others to see me in a new light, not really understanding the work, the pain of looking at your life behind bars and getting out, and you having I had more empathy and compassion for people. Uh, and it's all about time and putting in the work to not give people the audio but give them the video. And so, to make amends with my daughter and my mother and my brother and thank them for, you know,
Mhm,
being on that journey with me while I was inside.
mhm.
That was one of far and foremost for myself, but also for them. And at the same time, the disdain I had for the system, uh, being in the state of
Right.
Alabama and seeing what I saw and some of the things that happened on my journey, I knew was straight racist. And, a lot of those things that we're talking about forgiveness, I had to even move into those directions to forgive others and have a greater understanding that
Hmm.
um, I was given 24 hours. I was given 60 seconds in a minute, and I was given 60 minutes in an hour. And it was what I,
Hmm.
did rather than look so much at what the world has got going on, the
Right.
viewpoints of the world. And so, when I brought it in to me and trying to be responsible for my actions and not get distressed about what's going on in the system or the world or those things, it helped gave me a clearer path to not get caught up and allow some of those places that I had dealt with unforgiveness in to control me. If
Yeah.
that makes
So
sense.
here's the thing. Here's the thing, and I want to take a moment to talk about the truth, the real unpolished truth about forgiveness, because there are so many myths floating around out there that kind of keep people stuck. All right. So let me break down just a few of them if I can. All right. The first myth is that forgiveness means forgetting. That's a complete lie. Forgiveness
Right.
isn't some magical switch that erases the past. You remember, like being in black, they had the little thing, like looking at it and it flash a bright piece of light, and you forget everything. Man, look, what happened happened. The pain was real, the betrayal, the abandonment, whatever that was that hurt you, that happened. The disrespect, it left a mark on you. Forgiveness doesn't say it didn't hurt. It says I'm no longer letting this hurt control me. Now, you can remember without reliving. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. You can acknowledge the damage while still choosing from it. Now, the second myth, um, it really befuddles me because people say, "How can you forgive somebody?" I mean, I'm not. We can go to back to like MLK and the civil rights movement, all that stuff. Giving someone a second chance um, means full reconciliation. That's what it means. If you give somebody a second chance, you could like pretty much wipe the slate clean. It's tough. That's the toughest part, but it doesn't necessarily mean full reconciliation if you think about it. Some people are
Never.
just toxic. Some people are
Right.
just toxic, bro. Some people are unsafe. Some people haven't done the work to deserve a seat back at the table. And that's okay. And that's why we're trying to preach to a lot of the folks, like when we are talking about incarceration, bro. Like you can't keep doing the same stuff on on inside of the prison and expect a second chance. If you violent, you violent. If
Right.
that's just who you are, that's just who you are. You know what I'm saying? And they're not gonna let you back out in society if you're gonna keep showing violence. If you're gonna keep showing that I'm gonna not obey the rules. I'm not gonna obey the rules. I'm just gonna keep doing it. Some people just ain't gonna get a seat back at that table. And that's okay. And some people are not gonna get a seat back at your table, and that's okay. You can forgive someone from a distance. You can release that bitterness without reopening the door. And I get on my little soapbox a lot of times because this is like one of my passions. It's about being able to talk to people that are dealing with this, and even the parents or the spouses or the people that are just as impacted, right? They need to let their people know, and they need to know that forgiveness and reconciliation are two different roads. Forgiveness is
Correct.
something you do regardless of what the other person does. Reconciliation, it takes two willing, accountable people to reconcile. Like, hey, man, somebody say, hey, you know what? I messed up. I see how it impacted you. And that's what we want to talk to the parole boards about. That's what we want to talk to the pardon boards around. Like, hey, look, I want to reconcile, right? I acknowledge my mistakes. I acknowledge where I was wrong, right? And the other person, they can go in and like, well, you actually hurt me, and we can sit at the table and figure it out. Now, that second chance that you give is simply the chance for yourself to walk away free. Now, this is the one that hit me the hardest on my own journey. I'm gonna get a little. I don't. I think the hardest part was finding out the difference between forgiveness for them and the peace for me. Finding out that difference, right? It was like forgiveness for them, but I still need to have peace. I don't want to just be saying it just so I can get it out of my conscience or whatever. I need to actually forgive them. I need to like not just say it. I used to think forgiving somebody meant like I was letting them off the hook. That it was saying, hey man, what you did was okay, bro. It was okay. But forgiveness isn't saying it was okay. It's saying that I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Right? I'm okay moving forward. I'm okay building without the weight that what you did to me. I'm okay refusing to, I don't know, carry that shame, guilt, or any of that mess that you had any longer. Forgiveness is less about releasing them, but it's more about freeing yourself. I can't say that enough, man. Go ahead.
I agree. It's like toting unnecessary baggage. And for me, we share some of the similar things. Uh,
Mhm.
the more I started working on me and trying to be accountable for me and switching stuff up in between my ears and in my heart, allowed me to be able to forgive other people.
Yeah.
I knew I had a part to play in not allowing my life to be controlled by the past, uh, and not allowing myself, to put myself to carry this into my future. So, you know, having been one that asked for forgiveness, and it wasn't as hard to be able to forgive others. I like where you brought that reconciliation in. Yeah, when it's possible, yeah, it's easy to do. But on the other hand, you know, after doing that many years in prison, I was a different person. So those in my past, I had to understand that if I could change and grow, they could too. And so, to hold somebody accountable for something, many years ago and still be living it in the future, kind of like this thing. But it first starts with doing the work in between your ears and in your heart. Uh, because, like I said before, you can't. How would I ask others to forgive me and I can't forgive? And that big part of understanding the difference between forgiveness and trust is two different things. Trust is earned. Once that trust has been violated, it has to be earned. Uh, but the forgiveness part for me allowed me to be able to move forward, learn from it, and just by looking at my own life, particular times that my thinking was not up to par, value system tore up, I had to
Mhm.
extend that same grace to others and understand that sometimes people are people. And so, that kind of
Yeah.
helps me now. I'm not a, I don't like toting unnecessary baggage. I say what I say, people say what they say, but it's up to me to be able to internalize it and walk with it. What you
Yeah.
eat don't make me use the bathroom. So
Right.
I
You
try to
don't.
live my life now to where
Mm.
I don't want to ever live in regret. And so
Yeah.
because I shared that situation with my biological father, and I had to really understand that regret has no hope in it. So regret, there's nothing godly about regret. But we have an opportunity to extend that same grace that's been given to us to other people. And I like what Martin Luther King said. Love is the only force capable of transforming the enemy's dead man. And so for us that has had an opportunity to go behind the walls and sit on the shelf for a minute and really see ourselves for where we are and to be able
Hmm.
to look at our past and see kind of what it's led to, we can be able to extend that same type of compassion and empathy to others. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, even getting out and mentoring and talking to others, even
Hmm.
through those situations, nothing is wasted, man. If you have an opportunity to share with others, if they don't make those same mistakes to tote that unnecessary baggage, especially for a person getting out trying to move forward. Uh,
Yeah.
just getting out starting in a newness all in its own has its own set of problems, its own set of issues that a
Right.
person has to face.
Yeah.
And I say
And
this
that's the
all the
difference.
time.
Like being able to distinguish between the boundaries and bitterness. Because what happens is like when you've been hurt or when we've been hurt or whatever, it's easy to want to shut everyone out to say, hey, never again, not to the person that hurt you, but to love or trust and just vulnerability. You see, that's the thing. I just wanted to say, like, ain't nothing soft about being able to forgive somebody. Ain't nothing soft about letting that weight up to saying, like, the way this person treated me or the way that I felt this person violated me or whatever is going to control my narrative, right?
Right.
It's going to control my narrative. Um, so bitterness is a cage. It's a cage and it's disguised by protection. I say this all the time. Bitterness is a cage disguised as protection. It keeps the pain in and it keeps the healing out. Now, boundaries, on the other hand, now they built from love. Now, this is the hard stuff right here.
That's
You
good.
have
That's
love
good.
for yourself. Right, you set up boundaries. You have boundaries. They're fences. They're wall. They're not walls. They're fences. They say, "Hey, this is what I need to feel safe. This is what I won't accept, and this is how I choose to move forward." You can have boundaries and still have peace. You can say no more without becoming numb. You can protect your heart without hardening it. And that's what's happened. I'm telling you, for the most part, when you go in behind the walls, you have no earthly idea about the emotional scars or the psychological scars that you have in your mental, whether it's a product of your environment, whether it's your parents or lack of parents, whether it was, you know, somebody that abused you or something, it could be a plethora of things. But until you come to some type of peace with that, you really do stand a chance of going back in. Because you have not healed, you are not whole. So whenever you are in this forgiveness journey, wherever you are, bro, I'm not just talking to you, but anybody listening, wherever people are in their forgiveness journey, um, you can still gonna hurt. Maybe some people just aren't ready yet. But just know this: there's no expiration date on healing. There's freedom waiting on the other side of letting go. You don't have to forget. I'm not gonna never say forget. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say you have to reconcile. You don't even have to make friends with them folks no more. You don't have to pretend like it didn't even break you. But see, that's the soft part when he's like, you can't even acknowledge that this really broke me down, man. This really changed the way I think about people. This changed the way I think about society. This one little incident, or this one little relationship, or this one little um um part of my life changed the way I think about life and how it works. You can choose to stop letting it break you over and over again. That's the real truth about forgiveness.
You
Um,
know,
eh, yeah,
when I hear you talking, it's like unforgiveness is the cage you put yourself in and shut the door.
hmm
You know, it's a
yeah,
voluntary place that you shut the door in the cage and allow yourself to be consumed and controlled by a particular person or situation. Yeah,
right.
man, I get it, man. That process. I love how you said boundaries, though. I'm big on boundaries. I'm big
hmm
on what I call it being incarcerated, getting out, having to start over. I'm really big on boundaries and what I allow to have power in my life. That's a big thing with me. With things, relationships with people, in the community, even doing certain things that may seem to be, um, helpful. I have to always, you know, look at my boundaries I have first, because in this process of healing, in this process of moving forward, um, setting boundaries for anybody that's getting out uh, and trying to get stable. Boundaries is one of the most effective tools you can be able to have. Because if you don't have a plan to succeed, you have a plan to fail. And boundaries play a big part in that. And your mental health, uh, you're moving forward. There were even times when I got out of getting a job, and some of the people from my past, they was going in not a bad direction, but it just wasn't good for me to just associate
hmm
myself with some places that had the potential to pull me in some places and some conversations that I didn't need to go. And so boundaries are wonderful things to be able to discuss, man. I was good.
Yeah, yeah.
We all,
I agree, and that's why we had these conversations on the conviction fiction, because I mean, you just sit in on the weight of what we talked about today. We talked about second chance. So most of the people that listen to this show, we always highlight those second chances. We highlight the second chances. I mean, it's April, it's second chance month. We talk about the
right,
people and we try to highlight people that have committed crimes, or made a did their time or whatever, and come back out and use their second chance to uplift the community, to start families, to start businesses, to be upstanding citizens. But second chances aren't always about releasing someone from prison. Sometimes they're about releasing ourselves from an emotional prison we've been locked in for years. That story about my
right,
dad, that was some true stuff, bro. It was some true stuff. And I held that against him for a long time. And then guess what? That did at 9 years old, right? I'm just like get personal with it. At 9 years old, when I turned 10, he tell me to do something. Get what I said? You ain't my daddy.
yeah. I
You
ain't never
can't
do
tell
that
me
one, bro.
nothing. Man, I'm talking about in my head. In my head. He'll
Right,
tell me to do something. I was like, well, for real, why should I be listening to you? I listened to you before. But after you told me this, you don't even have that much respect no more. For real, for real. And that's how it kind of changed me. And that was an emotional prison that I got put in at 9 years old. Now, emotional power, giving someone that second chance, to when I gave it to them, especially someone that hurt me, man, because I ain't gonna lie, it hurt me for a long time. It's something that I don't take lightly, like really like lightly. I don't. It's not weak. It's not soft. It's not saying what he did was okay. It's not saying what anybody did to you was okay. All I'm saying is I would not let your actions control my peace. Let me
Yeah,
say that one more time. I would not let your actions, no matter who you are, you pretty cool though, Eric. You cool with me. I'm just saying anybody. I won't let those actions of anybody else continue or have some type of control on my life. Because forgiveness is strength. Forgiveness
you
is
know,
like maturity. You
it
grown
is,
then.
man. After my mom and my stepdad got a divorce, I got two younger brothers, and so I can remember at basketball practice playing in middle school. And my mom told me one time, she said, everybody else had parents had picked them up, and I was out there and they was raining. And I'm only sharing this because this is defining uh, time in my life. My mom said, I'm not obligated to do anything. It's your mom. And so it was at that time that it was like me against the world. As a 13-year-old, hey man, I'm thinking, hey, with all the choices I make, I got to be able to make them happen. And so, go through high school and toting this and trying to be the man and looking out for my little brothers. And then my mom wound up getting on crack, right? And so all of this stuff compounded was inside of me. I didn't really deal with it, man, until I went to college. And so, still a kid for a young man and you dealing and toting all this stuff. And then you out here in the streets, you see your mom out here in the streets, and you got two little brothers, and you in the streets, so you're really not setting an example for them. But you trying to hold it all together, man. And I look back and, my mom asked me to forgive her. She got herself together, man. She's retired now. Uh, got in church, she got herself together. And I look back, but a whole lot of that anger I had in my stepdad, the anger I had in my mom, a lot of that. And it was only because she apologized maybe 2,000 times. I'm just so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I forgave her, but it wasn't until I went through what I went through, uh, and there was no way that I could ask for forgiveness and not being able to spend
Yeah.
that same day. But a lot of that stuff, we be potent, but then we compartmentalize things and suffer in silence. And, it comes out other ways that, as listeners, we talked a lot of those things dealing with as a child, you know, I put myself in a me against the world mentality, and I told it that for a long time. But we all need other people, and that's why that word reconciliation, especially among those that you have the opportunity to do, because we all do need each other. Before a big part of my young adulthood is me against the world. I had to do it. When I got custody of my daughter, my whole thing was I never be the father that I didn't have. Or, make sure she was loved, and then I wound up leaving her life for a few years. You know, so nobody really knows what life will throw, and nobody says that life is fair. But if you have
Mm-hmm.
a opportunity to really, uh, for me, accepting Christ was the greatest thing that gave me a path to follow as far as redemption, as far as reconciliation, and having a greater understanding. But I look back, man, and toting a lot of that shape, and it was coming out all kind of ways. You really can't hide it because the more you tote that baggage, the more it begins to become a part of you. And once it becomes a part of you, if you don't make amends with yourself, with God, and with others, you can't really have peace. And so now I look back at, my stepfather passed 3 years ago. Me and my mom have a wonderful relationship now. Me and my brother and my daughter, but all of that came with work. But if I didn't do the internal work within myself, it'd be easy to go to a place to beat myself up or to be able to hold a grudge or you didn't do this or you didn't do that. But now life's good. I
Yeah.
I don't hold anybody accountable for anything done in the past, not even myself. I try not to live in regret, and I try to make each
Mhm.
day count to where I don't have to be regretful of anything. But that was a great process for a number of years, and I've been out for a good minute now, and things are a whole lot better.
Mhm.
But you have to deal with the man in the mirror first, and then once you hold him accountable, it's easy to be able to forgive others. But if you don't do the work on the inside, it's easy to use excuses or anything to justify staying mad, being mad,
Yeah.
and toting that unnecessary baggage.
Right. All right, guys. So here's what I want to leave you with. Um, just let's ask yourself. I want to thank Eric for joining on today. Um, but you with this episode, it's very important for you to think about this. Who might you need to forgive? Who might you need to give a second chance? I mean, really think about that. Is it a parent who let you down? Is it a friend who walked away when you needed them? Was it someone who caused deep pain and never apologized? Or maybe it's you that need to forgive. It's you that you need to forgive. You need to forgive yourself. Because me and my wife was talking about this the other day. She was like, "You're doing a show on forgiveness. You talking about giving second chances to people, but sometimes you might have to forgive yourself." And she told me that, and I was like, I might try to put that in the show. She was like, "No, that need to be a show by itself. You got to do that one by itself. You can't put. You need to dedicate a whole show to that." But whoever it is, here's your challenge this week: write a letter. You don't have to send it. You don't have to show it to anyone, but just write a letter. Write it to the person you need to forgive. Get it all out: the pain, the disappointment, the truth. And then after it's all written, just reflect on it. Just think about it. Like, how does it feel just to let it all out? Did something, because I know it did for me, something shifted within myself just doing this little simple exercise, right? I can remember back in classes, Eric could probably attest to this. We would write it all down. They would tear it up, tear the whole paper up.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So even if it's just a little progress, that's what it is. It's progress. That's healing, guys. That's definitely healing. And if you feel um, that you need to share your experience anonymously or openly, I love to hear your story. Use the hashtag my second chance story on social media or tag us, the conviction fiction, in your posts. You might never know who your story might help. This journey of healing, redemption, and growth isn't easy, but it is powerful. And when we forgive, when we give someone a second chance, we often discover that we've just given ourselves one too. Until the next time, guys, be gentle with yourself, be brave with your healing, and never forget your story isn't over. This is the Conviction Fiction Podcast. I'll see you guys next week. But before we go, Eric, what you doing next week? Are you going to come through? Drop by. I got a real serious topic for you.
No doubt, no doubt. Next season.
I'll send it over to you, man. Hang out, man. Keep rocking with us. This is the Conviction Fiction. See you soon.